I'm going to talk about a lot of different things in this video. First of all, it is winter here in Colorado. Actually, just a couple days shy of December 21st, 2013, which officially takes us into winter. But now that I'm no longer in the San Luis Valley and I'm in Trinidad, Colorado, it is so warm. It feels like a spring day in Oregon or something like that. You know, I know that a lot of people are a little wary of Colorado because of the temperatures, and all I got to say in terms of the perspectives that some people have about, you know, it all being desert, Colorado is an amazing place. It's a big place. The terrain is very different. It's very mountainous in some areas. Other areas I'm not so interested in. Some areas it's just a wide open prairie. Some areas there's more military stuff going on. There's more military families. I'm not discriminating. But some of you don't want to have anything to do with where the military bases are located for a wide variety of reasons. And here in Colorado, people like Joel Skousen and others have warned against living around the Colorado Springs area. They believe it's a target, and that the New World Order is setting all of this up for Colorado to get attacked, along with a number of other American cities, to usher in this World War III scenario with China and Russia. What's in the news this week? Oh yeah, China made it to the moon after the U.S. and Russia. And according to the Chinese state media, they say it's to be able to pinpoint any target on the Earth. I think the next solar cycle number 25, is going to be very, very significant. Starting around 2022, 23, 24, 25. I just feel this. I've always felt this. So I'm being open and transparent about this. But what I can also tell you from the black and white reality is you can look towards where China's Navy will be prepared for, say, an invasion or a move on America. If an EMP is used against us, or like NORAD, they just stand down. And something's set up internally by the shadow government that's already in control of the current president, and they deliberately do something. An act of sabotage is enacted, and the defenses go down, and there's nothing any of us can do about it. And that can give China the airborne supremacy, dominance. Now, all this fits in with Idaho, and just outside of Boise, you got that area where China wants to have their 50 square miles for their sustainable city. Now, we've seen the Idaho Statesman report on this. They even came up with a conspiracy theorist guide to the Chinese takeover of this particular land or something like that. Where are the follow-up reports? All that conspiracy theories guy did is provide hyperlinks that actually backed up the quote-unquote what they call a conspiracy, which isn't a conspiracy, it's in plain sight. Town desperate for money. China, money in hand. A system in place in the U.S. right now where China can walk in and say, we're investing in this area. We're going to give your local government this much money. What do you think about them apples? And they're like, those apples look pretty good. No conspiracy here. It's what's happening. And we know where things go from there. These Walmart supercenters, I think, are going to be export centers of certain things in the future. So, I say we're going to cover different topics, a number of different topics within this video. But now that we're on this subject, let's bring it back to Colorado. Now, there's an article going around dealing with Agenda 21 in Colorado. And I was talking with another talk show host last night, and we were asking ourselves, why is Colorado being targeted? Because this is a beautiful place. I know all about Denver. I'm actually tired of hearing people obsess on Denver, because what you're doing when you assume that the whole state is a police state because of one city in the center of a huge state. Some of you know Texas is big. Colorado is big too. Big time mountains. Big time forests. Big time high deserts. Far from human civilization. And what's legal here is illegal where a lot of you people live. We don't have to stay with growing pot. We don't have to just focus on the hemp farm in Springfield, Colorado. Yeah, they're growing hemp now in Colorado. We don't have to focus on the fact that quinoa can grow in Colorado. We don't have to focus on the fact that you can live for $100 or $200 a month if you're basically got your own property and you're living off the grid and all your expenses basically go to food and maybe other things, transportation costs, internet bill. We don't have to just focus on those things. There's lots of benefits to being in Colorado, and I think people need to consider this. But at the same time, we need to push back as those that live in Colorado and those in the U.S. and understand things like Agenda 21 and not just assume it's a conspiracy theory. They pretend everything is for the earth, and they enact legislation to put a different jurisdiction in control over an area of land, moving it from the Americans to the United Nations. That's what it comes down to. And there are people out there with blind faith that there are people in the United Nations, at least at the top of the United Nations, that mean well for you. But they're looking at the people down at the bottom. They're looking at the Indian tribes, the native stuff, the Gaia terminology, things of that nature. Not that I deny any earth spirit. It's that they're hijacking certain things that are already in the zeitgeist for their own agenda. And we're going through climate change as the sun is always going through major changes. We're seeing snow in Egypt. We're seeing all these expectations and preparations for a record winter, not just here in Colorado, but elsewhere in the nation, causing many to go, where's the global warming? Maybe it's a situation where we should pray for global warming or be happy for global warming in light of all these really cold temperatures that we're seeing. Again, snow in Egypt, first time in 113 years. That's big-time news. What's causing it? That's a whole other area. And I'm not a climatologist. I'm not a heliophysicist, even though I understand the cycles of the sun. I'm looking at the sun from more of a sociological perspective. And it's certainly not New Age. We're looking at the patterns. What types of changes do we see in human society when the sun is kicking off and moving and shaking and more sunspots? And even deeper than whether or not we have a magnetic storm or not. I think we're affected by the sunspots by themselves, CMEs aside. True story. I think there's a lot more to look at in terms of when the sun's active, we're active in some way. We don't necessarily have to have a geomagnetic storm, because there's more than one time that I've woken up in the middle of the night, gone on spaceweather.com, checked my email, and realized that a CME just erupted from the sun, and it's not expected for another 72 hours. So the length of time electrically, I think it's like 7 to 8 minutes for us to psychically or some other way be impacted by the eruption of the solar flare. But what about when comets slam into the sun itself? What kind of emotional drama could that create in our lives? What might that feel like? Record low temperatures and a solar maximum cycle that is less than expected by far. We don't know all that NASA has at its fingertips in terms of data. We know they're coveting information. There are some things we can learn about the sun and its effect on human consciousness outside of NASA. In fact, you have to go outside of NASA to look at the effects on human consciousness. Technically, there are no effects on human consciousness, but you can learn what chronobiology is. So if we're affected biologically, if we see periods in history where there are mutations in all of human life that we can see happening concurrently to certain cycles. And again, solar cycles, it's not just the 11-year. There's the 11-year, 22, 33, and then from there, there's cycles within cycles that mean different things. Maurice Cotterell has spent a lifetime looking at the cycles within the cycles. That's a whole other area of fascination. My main focus is just the 11-year cycle. Now, the sun's poles are about to flip very, very soon. And this reminds me, I'm going to be speaking with someone named Alden Morris. He's a Facebook contact of mine. I felt drawn to his energy, his articles. Another kindred spirit, another young man that's looking at some very, very important truths. So we're going to be doing a webcam interview real soon, maybe even tomorrow. I've got to get the software working. I've been a slacker this week. I've been working on different things, but I'm glad this person reached out to me, and we're going to do this webcam interview because we're going to hear from Alden. We're going to hear his understanding of the electric universe, holographic universe, this oneness concept, and how it relates to the sun. also manifestation, and I'm going to be learning some things from him. He's learning some things from me in terms of the war cycles. But again, he's already thought about some of these things. It's like we're helping each other understand this larger pool of information. So be aware these things are taking place. It's interesting to see these world events in the news, but I'm not alarmed personally. I'm not in a survival mode. In terms of the World War III in-game scenario that's on the books, that's admitted. We've admitted it, the U.S. has admitted it, Russia's admitted it. And then we have the MI5, we have their documents for 2025, dealing with wars over resources. They've already wargamed this. I think it was 2007 or 8 that they came out with that 2025 document. It was right about that time that I started looking more in the direction of a World War III scenario that would be fabricated. What I mean by fabricated is there are certain players at the very top of this pyramid that control the governments of Russia, control the governments of the United States, control the governments of all of these superpower nations. Europe, Israel, all of them. China, Russia, the U.S., all of these major nations. And we see these coalitions, these unspoken coalitions, for these larger superstates to go after the third world and share what they've pillaged. As we see China get an oil pipeline deal in Afghanistan. Well, what was the U.S. doing there? From the perspective of we need to be there to provide stability. And even from a hyper military war game perspective, we need to be there to maintain regional superiority. From that perspective, it makes no sense for the U.S. government, the U.S. corporation to say, come on, China, come on in and have your pipeline deal. For those of you that are buying into the propaganda that Putin's going to save us, you've got some cognitive issues that have got to be addressed. You've got to look more into this guy's background. September 11th, 2001. The inside job concept, the idea that Bush did it, it really doesn't go very far in terms of who actually masterminded it. What we know and what we discuss, for those of us that know it was an inside job, but more, it wasn't just an inside job. To cover up something like that, you're talking about removing the evidence. I mean, there's hundreds of dots. You know about a lot of these dots, and some people get focused on one dot, and they start obsessing on one thing. Did planes hit it or not? The fact is, we've got hundreds of dots that suggest that there's a cover-up, but the cover-up is not limited to the U.S. If it was, you would have every nation immediately after 9/11, responding basically with World fucking 3. The invasion of America would have happened then. Fuck this. No, they fucking gonna tell us this? Where's your evidence? You'd think there'd be some world leaders going, did 3 buildings fall and only 2 slammed into buildings? And by the way, I'm just saying. Why did the building that fell first, why was that the second to get hit? Why did the mayor of New York and many others get that warning to not be around the World Trade Center that day? Why did they lie about the air quality? Why was there insider trading involving American Airlines, United Airlines, and so much more? How was this connected with the drug war? Why the fuck was the head of the ISI meeting with the head of the ISI, the CIA, in Washington, D.C. in the week before 9/11? I mean, I can go on and on and on. The classic 10 points of 9/11. And that's why this is an intellectual, like this is Darwinism in some weird, twisted way. Only the ones that are intelligent enough will see through the lie. Everyone else is going to believe the government lie. It's open season, baby. It's open season. And I think they think of us that way. It's open season on those dumb motherfuckers that aren't going to be intelligent enough to see through what's going on. To not eat that potato chip. To not eat that burger. You live in a world, by the way, where there is so much information that is shouting at you every moment about what's happening. And I've reached the end of this 15 minutes. I'm going to be back with more information in just a few. Stay tuned, and of course, share this video